So I'm working on creating my shades. So again, every time I create a shade, I've started with that regular color. I'm adding a little bit of black to it to make it darker each time and working my way up so that once I get down to the end, it'll be the darkest value that this dark blue can be. When I'm going towards my tints, that means I'm going to be taking this color and I'm going to be adding white to it. So again, this is my regular color that I'm using, whether it's a secondary that I'm using or a tertiary that I've mixed. And I'm going to be adding white to it. So each time you're going to go in, take your paint, add a small amount of white to it, kind of test it and see if that's going to work. And this should be a step lighter than your regular color. And again, take a little bit of white, add it to that regular color that you've mixed up. And then add the next step down and continue creating your tints and creating your shades, working your way across until you have your value scale done. Then we're going to take that and we're going to start applying these skills to our painting. So you're looking at your reference image and we're looking at where would these values fit. We've got the darkest values that are here, this really dark blue, that's going to work really well for that. Our middle values, we're looking at some of these lighter areas as it transitions across. This is a lighter value, so heading towards our regular color, and then we've got our tints in here as well with some blending that happens. Before you actually get started on your drawing, you've got your outline done. Take your kneaded eraser and go ahead and lighten those lines so that you can see them, but you don't get rid of them completely. This is so in those light areas, it isn't a pencil line that I see. It's the difference of paint values that create this shape. We're not going to take a Sharpie and go in here and outline this. This is how we're going to create form. This is the same skills that we have used and are building upon from our observational skills from the beginning of the year, looking at angles, drawing things upside down, learning dark to light shading with graphite, then transitioning that into color with Prismacolor. Now we're going to do the same thing with paint. You're going to have a lot of exposure to different mediums throughout the semester so that as you transition over to the high school, you can use those really well. You're going to be over there killing it, going into those art classes with some really good skills. Alright, so taking a look at my reference, I'm going to start in the center, and really this is because, one, I find that really interesting, those shapes that are in there, but also I can work my way out as I move across. So I'm going to start with this piece here. Look at the direction of the shading. That is going to be key. Where is the dark and light at as you paint across? So we notice that it's a little darker towards the center. And as it fades up to this edge, this is a high point. It's a point that is coming towards you. So that is a highlight. And this will be a light area. On the other side, it's going to be a dark to light as well. And that creates the difference between these two. There's a lighter value over here, a darker value right here, and that's what creates those nice crisp lines. The blending comes from where we're going from dark to light and moving our way across. So I'm going to start on my painting. Again, I've lightened those lines. So I'm going to be looking at creating the shading that works its way across. Again, we need a good kind of base coat in there. You may have to come in and do another coat on top of this to make it nice and smooth and nice and even. When you move forward, and if you take a painting class, you're going to move to canvas. That first one is kind of a base coat. When you work with that, you've got to kind of scrub that in. Alright, so looking at, working my way across, I'm going to start with a medium kind of value and work my way in. I'm just going to continue using that brush that I was working with. It's a small flat to get a base in here. And then as I'm painting, I don't paint along that line right away. I'm going to get a good bead of color and fill in. And then on my second brush stroke, get right up along that edge. I'm taking the chisel of the brush and running around. The chisel brush is the very end of the brush hairs and gliding that across. Then, second, I pull that color up right next to it and pull that nice even line. All right, and for those really tight points, you've got a small round. That's going to be good for getting into those areas. Alright, so next, while this is wet, I'm going to go in with my lighter value. I've mixed up kind of a really light blue here from when I was actually creating my value scale. I'm going to use it. So I know that from my reference image, this corner is lighter. So while this paint is still wet, I'm going to begin working that lighter value in and moving my way across. You will see some texture to this because we're working with the textured paper. This is so that it holds paint well. And then after I've kind of applied it and worked that in, I'm going to start blending. So you can kind of see, come on camera, that there's kind of a roughness here. To smooth that out, I'm going to take a small amount of water on my brush and I'm going to bring that across. Acrylic paint is water soluble. And I'm going to blend that some. Go back, get some more paint. And you really want to blend an area where there's a dark to light while your paint's wet. If you go back, you can kind of work an area, but you'll have to re-wet it. Alright, so that water helps smooth out that area, and I'm just going to continue that all the way down. Making sure that I leave this side lighter because this is where my highlight is. And that little bit of water really helps with the blending the two colors together. So I've got that lighter highlight on this side and my darker value on this one. Alright, and that's what I'm going to do for my entire painting. I'm looking at where the darkened lights are versus where the shadows are. Thinking about my value scale, always using my reference image and looking at that fade that happens along there. I'm going to have to lighten this a lot more. So I'm going to go in. And around here, it's going to be a lot lighter. Alright, so go ahead and give it a try. Start working. And make sure when you run into a spot where you're not sure, raise that hand. I'm happy to come over and help you. Just make sure that you are proactive and that you communicate that, okay?